we are in Gene Key 5, which when I read it, I was like, for me, I totally felt that, and maybe you will too when I read it, because this gene key is all about impatience versus patience and what that looks like. So the shadow, of course, is impatience, and the gift is patience, and the city is timelessness. All right, so that is our current world theme at this point in time. And just as I was reading it, I was like, I have to share this, because if it resonates with you as much as it does with me, then I think you'll really appreciate what this gene key has to say. And we can learn a lot from this message. So, and it's interesting because the fifth gene key is not even in my profile. But the cool thing is, like, we have all of these gene keys in us, right? They're all coded into our DNA. Some are just more profound than others for each individual, or they show up more. They're ones that we're called to really unlock and step into that gift frequency. But I think most every human that I know can relate to the fifth gene key. And so I'm going to take some time to read this. I'm going to read the shadow and the gift. I'm not going to read the city just for the sake of time, but most people are living in the shadow state. And so the first step is to rise out of the shadow and into the gift. And so that's what most of us are, that's where most of us are at. Okay. So hello, Diana. Good to see you on here. So I'm going to take a few minutes to read this. I'm going to read it straight from the book because the words are just so good. And so I'm going to read this, and then afterwards we are going to stand up, we're going to move our bodies, I'm going to play some music, and we're going to do a little dancing to just really help us shake off any of the stresses from the week and elevate our frequency, which can really help us step into those higher frequencies of gratitude and patience and love, right? And then tomorrow we are wrapping up the challenge with our members only breathwork class, which will be focused on gratitude. So it's going to be a really great session. So I'm excited for that. Okay, so let me go ahead and start reading. All right. And as you're listening, you know, if anything really stands out to you, share those in the comments. If it's a sentence or a phrase that I read, you know, and that really just like speaks to you deeply, then share that. Okay, so the fifth gene key, and the subtitle is The Ending of Time. Okay. And so the fifth shadow is impatience. And it is the fifth gene key that really forms the backbone of the 64 gene keys. Containing all the codes and patterns of life, the fifth gene key represents the great digital library of consciousness in form. These codes lie coiled and sealed within every single living cell, wound into the famous helical patterns of your DNA. The fifth gene key is also one of those gene keys that is found in all life forms, since it alone maintains the very rhythmical patterns that allow an organism to stabilize within its particular environment. Furthermore, the fifth gene key is a great mystical chess piece within the genome, since it also unites all these separate organisms into one great universal rhythm, the pulse of life. Because the fifth gene key binds all living forms through these universal patterns, at its lower frequency, it tends to display a deep distrust of life. This manifests in human beings through the fifth shadow of impatience. We know that all human beings carry inside themselves a deeply ingrained fear of death. What you may not realize is that there are many layers found around this fear. At the level of your personality, there is your outer fear, the prime fear pattern you absorbed through the events of your childhood. This personal fear, in turn, gives way to the great collective fears. For example, the fear of change. I think that's what so many of us are experiencing right now, is that fear of change and uncertainty. At the deepest level, however, at the very precipice of awareness, lie the most ancient human fears, and this fifth shadow represents them. These ancient collective fears stem from one prime source, the fear that there is no underlying order to the universe. If the frequency of your genetics is tuned into fear, no matter what you do to try to bring a sense of stability to your life, your body itself will never feel safe. This is, in fact, the normal state of consciousness of the mass of humanity. Within the fifth gene key lies the great secret of the timing of life. This gene key is about trusting or not trusting universal rhythm and natural timing. It sets the rhythms of the seasons. It fixes the timing of cell growth and decay in every living creature, and it governs all patterns of animal and human migration. As we have seen, all distrust concerning the timing of life manifests in human nature through the fifth shadow of impatience. This impatience is one of the greatest causes of disease on the planet, for it will undermine your health and well-being and cut you off from the very heartbeat of life. In a certain light, impatience can be viewed by human beings as a positive trait, since it can goad you into action instead of remaining complacent. This is a mistaken impression, since impatience is rooted in agitation, and all action arising from agitation is out of harmony with the whole. There is a vast difference between acting out of impatience and acting out of resolve. Impatience is not a natural feature of human character. Rather, it is the result of a loss of your natural rhythm at a biological level. If you are feeling impatient, your breathing has become shallow and your nervous system is overactivated. How much do we talk about that in breathwork, right? Your core feeling is that all is not as it should be. Of course, this feeling is absolutely untrue. Everything is always exactly as it should be. What has happened is that you have fallen out of your natural state, the state of trust. Impatience is always rooted in the mind, and as such is unique to human beings because of the unusual nature of our neocortex, which processes information in such a way that we perceive everything as happening in time, with a past, a present, and a future. The only way to escape impatience is to escape the mind and its realm of time, which is precisely what happens at the higher frequencies of this gene key. There's so much you can learn about the 64 shadow archetypes by looking at them through their harmonic pairings. Psychologically, you can find the root of all human issues and complexes within the 32 shadow pairings. And each of the shadow pairings is literally set up to create obsessive patterns. The programming partner of the fifth shadow of impatience is the 35th shadow of hunger. These two states literally feed on each other. The hunger to escape the feeling of insecurity leads to impatience and vice versa. And it is all driven by the fear of time running out. In the modern world, we can really feel this deep-seated fear rippling through humanity. We have forgotten that life itself sets the pattern of evolution and that we are merely the agents of those patterns. From time to time, both in our personal lives and at a collective level, natural mutations occur when the stability of life is overturned. If you can enter deeply into the spirit of such times, you will come to realize that nothing is really out of balance and that all will reveal itself in time. Because the fifth gene key contains all life forms into a wider, connects all life forms into a wider pattern, you have to learn to realize that nothing happens by chance. Everything is connected to everything else. So when you find yourself moving through a difficult period, it means that all life is moving through a difficult period. The themes that punctuate your daily life are universal themes that are lived out by all humans and all creatures simultaneously. If you look at the state of the mass consciousness on our planet today, you will see a universal mutation underway. Our entire species is undergoing a deep genetic quantum leap. As you come to terms with your personal fears, humanity comes to terms with its collective fears. The very fact that you are reading this right now is telling you that life is examining itself in enormous depth. And in doing so, it is discovering all manner of anomalies or glitches in its programming matrix. As each glitch is observed, it is deleted. And as each fear is accepted, it diminishes. Beneath the old genetic code, a new one is thus revealing itself. In summary, this fifth shadow of impatience is nothing more than a low frequency human response to a particular set of environmental conditions. Like all shadows, it is simply a matter of perception and attitude. Time always moves according to your perception or mood. If your breathing is calm, rhythmical, and deep, then time appears to dissolve. At the highest frequencies of this fifth gene key, you do not even notice time. The more you become aware of your own impatience and restlessness, the deeper you begin to sink into your true center, and the less you're concerned with time and timing. This is the birth of a higher frequency, and that frequency is what we call patience. This fifth gene key contains the most beautiful of equations. Acceptance equals patience, because the deeper you enter into your fears, the more patient you become. So when we look at patience, this one's a little shorter. The antidote to impatience is patience. And this may sound like a very obvious truth, but it's actually rather profound. The ironic thing about patience, though, is that it takes patience to learn patience, and patience can be learned. It is a self-proving gift. In other words, the more patient you become, the more you learn that patience always pays off, and thus the easier and more natural it becomes to wait. However, patience is not the same thing as waiting. You can wait both patiently and impatiently. Patience is the natural ground of your being, whereas impatience arises out of fear and conditioning. Patience is about trust. These two words have very similar meanings. If you trust in life, you will trust life in every moment, even the challenging moments. And in doing so, you will always remain in the flow. As you live your life, you may notice many rhythms all around you, and it is the underlying presence of these rhythms that makes you feel stable. The most obvious annual rhythm can be seen in the shifting of the 4 seasons. If you are inwardly quiet, the passage of the seasons will make a very powerful impression within your psyche. It tells us some very deep truths, that spring always follows winter, for example. In your daily life, you will experience periods of winter where resources may be scarce, where you may feel lost for a while, or when you simply feel melancholy for no apparent reason. Such stages are built into life, and if you are just patient, they change of their own accord, and they always reveal some magic. As a vital element of the chemical family known as the ring of light, this fifth gene key plays a profound role within your genetics. Coding for an amino acid known as threonine. It determines the blueprint for how your individual cells trap light and convert it into energy. Through the magnetism of your living aura, you draw in or limit the frequencies of light deep into the cellular structure of your body. If you live your life out of fear, magnetically speaking, you limit the amount of light that touches your DNA. The more open-hearted you are, the more you magnetize higher frequencies into that very same DNA. It is only at certain frequencies that particular codes can be activated. When you are in love, for example, you will always experience higher codes within your DNA awakening. Time will pass differently, almost as if you were in a timeless bubble. Anyone who has been in love can recognize or remember this kind of experience. The fifth gift of patience is a far greater gift than it may sound. Patience, when really experienced deep within the body, leads to an opening of your heart and the consequent turning on of a higher code within your DNA. Your DNA is a library of consciousness that is completely dependent on the frequencies of light. The body is designed to awaken to these higher frequencies, which is why humanity really only seeks one thing: to live in the state of love. The more you are able to settle into a deep trust and patience with the rhythm of your own life, the more your heart will open and the softer, more yielding you will become in your attitude to everything and everyone that comes your way. You will begin to discover a higher functioning of your DNA, a code within a code. This code is not dependent on anything or anyone outside you. The state of open-heartedness or of being in love is a completely natural human state. There are people in the world who live permanently in this state. The gifts that come to the patient person are not only inner quietness, but also integration. When you wait and allow life to reveal its natural rhythms, you also come to realize that life knows best. Hindsight shows you repeatedly that life is constructed of beautiful and perfect patterns woven into wonderful tapestries, and that your individual life follows such cosmic patterns. If you know how to wait calmly, you will realize that you are always a part of these wider patterns, and that they actually support you at all times, even the most challenging times. Above all, the gift of patience allows you to hear life's music. It tunes you into the subtle metronome behind your life. It allows you to breathe deeply into your belly and never feel trapped by your outer life situation. Patience smooths rough edges. It keeps your heart and mind open. It makes life seem simple and easy. When you become impatient, even for a moment, you have stopped listening and trusting in the greater life. For these reasons, it is patience that has always been the true gauge and measure of the greatness of a person's soul. I love that so much. It speaks really deeply to me. I'm going to see if there's any comments. But I think it's beautiful. I love this book because it's just written so poetically. And I can honestly say I've tended toward impatience most of my life. And I know that that doesn't get me anywhere. So this is a real challenge for me, and in an area that has been a huge focus for me this year, actually, is really looking at and observing my fears and becoming aware of them and releasing them in order to become a more patient person, so I can trust life and not live in fear, right? So, yeah, Diana says profound. Everything is as it should be. This is a helpful phrase for me. I work on living in the moment, but November was a stressful month and health has struggled. Knowing that everything is as it should be, it's very helpful. Yes, absolutely. It's really hard to live and even believe and trust in some of this stuff when we are facing challenging times, but it's those times when we really need it most. And it's those times where so much growth can really happen as well. I think we're more open to it, right? So I really just wanted to take a moment and share that with you. And because I think it is really, really powerful. And it's an opportunity for all of us to do the work on ourselves, to cultivate more patience and trust and love, so that we can start to see that in the collective, right? All right. So now